Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished and senior marketing and branding professional from Chennai, India, Mr. Anand S. Anand, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It's an honor to be on your show.
Thank you. Anand is the co-founder of TMA Global, which is the branding and marketing consultancy firm. So Anand, before we get into talking branding and marketing, tell me a little bit about your own journey and what took you to branding and marketing.
Okay. So I started my career in advertising. Always been fascinated while growing up on how advertising or communication shape up your perceptions, right? Shape up your beliefs and make you to kind of decide and buy one product over the other, go to one destination over the other, one place over the other, whatever that you may probably see it in our day-to-day lives. So that was kind of that got my attention, and it was like fascinated for me to understand what goes into the behind the scenes of making this happen. So that pushed me to do my graduation in visual communication, and then I did my postgrad in MBA marketing, and then I also studied MA in advertising, and that kind of gave me an entry path to begin my career in advertising. So that's how I got into advertising, not going the other path of be it engineering or any other profession.
Fair enough. So, you're the co-founder of TMA Global. Yeah. Tell me about the kind of work you are doing here.
Okay, so we started this a couple of years back, and all of our co-founders have about like 15 years of experience, and we wanted to target the global businesses which are still not utilizing the power of branding. So we're targeting B2B and B2C businesses both, but we see a large chunk of B2B world are not utilizing the power of branding, what branding could do. There were interesting work happening on the B2C side. We want to leverage that idea and what the potential of branding could do to the business in B2C world and apply it in the B2B world. So that's where the objective of starting this. And we work with brands primarily in the US and in Middle East as well. And we're trying to get into other markets as well. So the whole primary objective was like to give a branding and marketing consultancy and a creative solution for all those businesses.
Very interesting. And therefore, my next logical question to you, Anand, is what goes into building a successful brand?
Okay. So there are three things I would say. So the very first thing is stakeholder alignment. Okay, because for most established brands, at least when they do their exercise of what the brand is and what the brand equally not is, it kind of, to an extent, there is some understanding to the core team. But during the day-to-day operations and the BAU stuff, things get digressed and each team starts running in different directions. So having a stakeholder alignment of the entire organization is extremely important in building a successful brand. And two, who's your core group of target audience or segment that you are going behind? Because again, most businesses, when they start doing this branding exercise, they say like, my brand is for everyone is my customer, right? So that's like a common phenomenon we keep hearing. So if you try to be everybody to everyone, you kind of become nothing to no one, right? So it's like identify your core segment, who's your primary audience, and build your entire brand based on their needs, their pain points, and the truths that you find from the segment. You need a homogeneous segment to build it. Then after figuring out this, be consistent, right? That's extremely important. So otherwise, if you start running in different directions again over a period of time, each team starts to do multiple things on their own. For consumers, it's like there's no consistency. They see something online, they see something else offline, they read something else in news, in PR, then again it goes for a toss. So stakeholder alignment, identifying your core segment and building a brand and being consistent in your messaging is what is very important in building a successful brand.
Very interesting. Well said. The other part of branding, and I'd love to get your thought, is that I've often said brands are like children. They're living beings, and they need to be nurtured all the time. And yet there are some brands, Anand, that last 100 years and some die in 3 months.
Yeah.
What is the
Correct.
secret sauce these brands have that they stay relevant for such a long time?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. When I spoke about brands being consistent, is one of the successful requirements, to be, one of the requirements to be a successful brand. At the same time, they should also evolve with the audience with the time, right? Let's say, for example, if your core target audience, say a 25 to 35-year-old in one particular socioeconomic society or classification that you're targeting, uh, they keep entering into that age bracket and exiting, right? So they start using your brand in that particular time frame of their life, and then they mature, they evolve, and they move on to do other things and other brands and stuff like that, right? So your previous generation of your 25 to 35-year-old are not the same as the current generation, or the future generation of 25 to 35-year-old are not the same as the current 25 and 35-year-old. They are, every generation, humans are becoming smart, adaptable, and their needs are changing. So how are we appealing to that particular segment or audience? So we need to constantly keep understanding the audience, at least every couple of years. Otherwise, whatever that your brand started with maybe like 50 years back and they stuck to it, means that's when this whole inertia of the next generation saying, oh, this is my dad's or my parents' brand, I don't want to use it. If they're not understanding that particular age group of audience, which is still relevant to the brand. So one successful brand I could think of is Oreo. Completed their 100 years in 2013, if I'm right. Like 100 years, right? And the brand is still young. It's not old, it's extremely relevant. So what they did is they kept relevancy in communication. They made the brand as a part of a pop culture, but at the same time, they also identified interesting use cases of the product, not necessarily just having cookies, on its own. But they started innovating with doing Oreo cakes, right? Oreo milkshakes, right? So that got the fascination of different generation of people.
Correct.
And that went like a wildfire. People started innovatively using it, and the brand stayed so relevant. And they don't say like, this is my parents' biscuit, I won't eat it. No kids will ever say that.
Well said. Well said. The next question to Anand is about how the digital world seems to be changing branding. I was launching products when 45 years ago. When I was at ITC, and there were big billboards and there were full page advertisements and long films in cinema halls, but all that is changing. How is the digital world forcing brands and brand managers to adapt?
Okay, so it's a very interesting question. Digital, what I see, is one of the mediums, one of the vehicles to get your brand message across to your consumers.
Correct.
Just that digital is enabled a two-way communication between brands and your consumers. All your other mediums that you said are like one way. Okay. Because of this two-way communication, and also because of the cost factor that is involved in building your brand online is significantly lesser when compared to your traditional mediums. Brands started bombarding their messages on the medium without realizing what it is, what emotions it is triggering on the consumer on the other side, right? Say, for example, I kind of belong to both the analog era and the digital era. I was born in the analog era and grew up as the digital evolution happened, and I'm adapted to digital technology as well. So we never use or release ads every day on newspaper, right? We never, because there is some sense in when to use, when not to use, and all of those. And we never get carried away by the content or the communication that's happening on other mediums, say for example TV or print or radio. Hey, that brand is talking about something different. Can we also do something like that and release it? Nobody thought about that way in that era. But today, because we think digital is the only thing, They're trying to copy what others are doing and trying to latch on to trends what others are doing or stuff like that. And in the process, we're losing the soul and the essence of the brand, right? We're trying to be, I would say, like homogeneous. I would call it like blending in the sea of sameness, which is diluting your brand. It's helping the platform for sure, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah,
it's diluting your brand values. So I would say, like, I think we need to even more consciously stick to the core essence of the brand and play the brand's persona well to different platforms and not the other way around. Like, we shouldn't play up with what Instagram is offering and what other people are doing in Instagram and go and probably follow the trend.
Interesting. And now that you're talking of communication, the communication landscape is also changing very dramatically. First, of course, you're communicating on your handheld device. Second, you're being asked to communicate in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
How does a brand adapt to both these requirements?
Okay. Again, it's a very interesting question. See, during movie advertising in cinema halls, you had like a 1 minute, or you had time to tell your full story, and you had the full attention of your audience, right? That you can narrate a good story, you hook them up with some interesting messages and all of those. That got reduced with TV with 30 seconds. Insta, you probably go like you said, like Insta, TikTok, 10 seconds and stuff like that. Again, what we need to be cognizant of is the platforms are increasingly doing this technique to keep the audience hooked onto the platform.
Correct.
So this whole 10-second phenomena itself is done for the benefit of those platforms and not for the brands. Right? It's extremely difficult to communicate your brand story in 10 seconds in a meaningful way. And imagine if brands start communicating it. Okay, say example, if you communicate something in 10 seconds, in a minute, you have like 6 brands communicating that. In an hour, you have like 60 brands, 100 brands, whatever that is, the number is. So imagine in a day, you have 1,000 brands communicating a story in 10 seconds. And for the consumer, he or she is not going to remember anything, literally anything, right? So if we, maybe today's generation is also like, all of us have lost our attention span. We can't pay attention to something beyond like 10 or 15 seconds. So that is being utilized by these platforms to keep us hooked onto the platform. We keep swiping and swiping and swiping without realizing we would have spent hours on the platform, literally. But if we give you a 1 hour content to consume, you would not consume. You will say like, hey, I can't waste my 1 hour time. But instead, if it is like broken down into 10 minutes or 5 minutes of bite-sized chunks, without realizing, you will consume the whole content, right? So these are devised for the platforms to make the audience stick to them. If brands are going to fall prey into that, it's going to be a very dangerous territory to enter. Rather, build your brands in mediums where you can create a meaningful communication or narrate a story or give your value, whatever that you can give to your consumers, and use these mediums probably to do a reminder medium, right? Every medium should set as an objective. Like you said, again, I compare it with how it happened in the analog era. You cannot build your whole brand on billboards. Billboard served as a good reminder medium. But you built your brand story and narration on print and TV, and billboard reminded the story what the consumer saw in television and print.
Correct.
It's the same thing that is applicable on digital as well. If we probably look things holistically.
And yet, Anand, the digital platforms are now a reality.
Yeah.
As someone who's an expert in the area of marketing and branding, how does a brand manager choose between so many different platforms available, because all of them are very expensive?
Yep, very true. So I think this is where understanding who's your core target segment or primary target audience for your brand or the users are residing. So if we identify that, then go all in into that platform, then it becomes easy to identify, who is available on LinkedIn and how they behave, who's available on Insta and how they behave, who's on Facebook, who's on Twitter, who's on TikTok. So your core target audience can easily tell you or guide you to where they are present. And digital is certainly one medium that they consume all the day, but they also consume or available on all other parts. They also live in real life. They don't just live on digital all the time.
Yeah.
So where do they go and shop? So where do they travel, right? Where do they commute to work? Or if you're located in a particular geographical region, where do they probably go and make their grocery purchases? If they're doing it online, there are a lot of other ways that you can reach them beyond those platforms as well. So that is what is going to make you holistically be like remembered than just going in one platform. But choosing a core audience is going to be a defining moment for the brand.
Correct.
The platform.
Very interesting. There is, again, in the old days or even now, one set of influencers are your big cricket stars, your big Bollywood stars. But now there's this new breed of influencers and micro influencers.
Yeah.
What is your advice to brands who are wanting to work with micro influencers, and what kind of challenges or opportunities do they represent for the brand?
Yeah. So since digital has kind of democratized this whole publishing kind of an activity that it's not available in print or television medium, it's a great opportunity today to build a brand on digital at probably a fractional cost of what the big brands used to spend and build and grow bigger in their business like few decades ago. So again, these influencers, I would see them as like mini celebrities, right? That is I draw a parallel to the big celebrities used to be in the other traditional mediums.
Yeah.
So once you identify your niche segment or your core audience, then what are their interests? Who are the influencers that they follow? That becomes easy to kind of identify. You always have a risk of the influencers may or may not be probably using your product. People do ask questions that, and I know that they are promoting it for money. They are not the real users and all of those. But these challenges were prevalent in the traditional channels as well. Even today, celebrities come for brand endorsements and they don't necessarily use all the brands. But at least it gives you a reach, that is not probably possible earlier without them. So I again draw the same parallel, but choose your influencers and micro influencers who probably reflect your brand values, what you stand for, and your audience as well. So then you probably try it and test it out, and we need to ensure that the brands get a great mention or promotion, the narration, what the content, the communication that needs to be narrated about the brand needs to be controlled by the brand managers. If you leave it to them, then it's like, again, the core message starts getting diluted. And 10 different influencers talking about 10 different things about the brand. And again, the message is like, doesn't reach its full potential. So I think they need to be controlled. The narrative needs to be told or guided.
Thank you. And the next question is relates to technology, Anand. Technology is coming into every aspect of our lives, and obviously branding and marketing will also get affected. And then there's this entire element of the metaverse, where brands have started to take, acquire assets. Nike has spent a lot of money on buying real estate in the metaverse. What are your thoughts on the metaverse, and how will the metaverse impact brands?
Okay, so another good, interesting, and evolving domain. Brands are still figuring out how the whole metaverse as a universe functions, their do's and don'ts, and how to do what is the technology required. There are pioneer brands, like you said, they're trying to adapt and evolve to the audience. If you look at the brands who made a first move into such new mediums, like you said, Nike, MasterCard also made an entry into metaverse. So all these brands, if you see, they were like lasting legacy brands. So they stayed relevant all through the years, right? And they never lost their soul, from day one till today. Even when they evolved with different mediums.
Mm.
Right? So MasterCard never diluted its core positioning or core messaging or communication or whatever it is, because it is forced to do a 10-second reel on a TikTok or Instagram.
Correct.
They never got dictated by the platform. They use platform to their advantage. I think that's where a big difference of building a lasting brand or a brand that can survive for centuries, where they stick to what they stand for. Like I said, a stakeholder alignment. I know what my brand is. I know what my brand is not. So if they keep that in mind consciously, and then they evolve to different mediums, they know that they get the max. I mean, they use technology to their advantage and not the other way around, right?
Well
So
said.
metaverse is so interesting. Again, people are still figuring out, brands are still figuring out how to do it. It's a natural evolution, right? Of what the social networks or the digital technologies is happening. So people are going to fulfill their desires of what they couldn't fulfill on the real world. Like, I need to look like this. I need to kind of wear a dress like this. I should be able to go for a party and chat with my friends. Like similar to probably early 90s of Yahoo chat room, what the feel that it gave. Similar to that, I guess it's happening in the metaverse. So if brands can make a meaningful connection without intruding, what people are doing or intended to do in first place, I guess they have a winning score there, rather than going interrupting their activity with their hard salesy message. So rather, if brand can be supportive and add value to what people are doing in metaverse, they're going to be very meaningful conversations happening there.
Wonderful, wonderful. And another time for only one more question. So my last question to you is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on all your amazing understanding of so many different things that you're doing, what would you say are 3 lessons you would like our viewers and listeners to take away from your understanding of marketing and branding?
Okay. The first one would be, understand your core positioning of the brand. Very, very important.
Yeah.
Who you are not, what is your brand personality, what are your brand values, because nobody in the organization is going to remember this day in and day out except the core marketers, right? They need to own this space. And if somebody is coming and probably giving you suggestions which is not in line with what you've built the brand for, then I think it's the marketer's job to go and put a stop there. Otherwise, your brand building efforts, what you have spent monies on so far, goes futile. So that is number one. Like, should always keep that in mind. So then the second one is like keeping this in mind. And when you go and evolve your brand into different channels, you never get diluted by the trends that are happening, right? You need to create brand centric and human centric content, and don't create platform centric content. Because like I have a small concern when they say like digital marketing is kind of taking the whole communication or narrative forward. Few years back, nobody said, maybe like 20 years back, nobody said print marketing is doing something, or like TV marketing is trying to build brands, or radio marketing is trying to build brands. So marketing is a whole larger function, and be it digital, print, TV, or even the metaverse, whatever it is, they're just vehicles to take your message to the audience in a relevant way. That's about it. That's not the entire marketing gamut. It's like one part of the whole marketing gamut. So if we keep that in mind and see your consumers on a larger picture, like what do they do from morning to evening, and understand their pain points, a day in the life of a consumer, and see what your brand can play a meaningful role in their life.
Well said.
Other than you just focusing only on your product and what you can do, that makes a lot more relatable relationship between your consumers and your brand. And today, in the more evolving media scape, you have to be a lot more purposeful brand. Give more value before you seek value from your consumers.
Well
so that's
said.
the third point.
Very interesting. And on that note, Anand, and your 3 amazing lessons, which is understand the core positioning of your brand, create brand-centric and human-centric content rather than platform-centric. And the third one, which is so powerful and so important, give more value than what you want to demand from it. Thank you so much for speaking to me about your journey. Thank you for talking to me about TMA Global, about all the great work you're doing for customers and consumers in the world of marketing and advertising. I enjoyed talking to you about the digital world, and your ideas are really really interesting, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners will love to understand much more about what you are doing. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It's an honor to be on your platform.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.